Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Camden.
And this is the South Marshall Minute. Field day is on Friday for students that only had 2 or fewer minors and no F's on your report cards for the first term.
There will be ultimate frisbee, kickball, volleyball, parking lot games, and Kona ice. It starts after lunch.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today for lunch is cheesy bread or pizza.
Tomorrow for breakfast is confetti pancakes.
On Friday, Marshals for Christ will be meeting in the 100 Flex Room starting at 7:30. Everyone is welcome to come to the meeting. Now to Brooklyn with the weather.
By the time you're watching this, it'll be 62 degrees and sunny, and by the time we get out of school, it'll be 67 degrees and sunny. Now back to Camden and Molly with the news.
Football won their game last night.
Boys basketball open gym is tomorrow after school until 4:45.
Chess Club will be starting after fall break. It will meet after school in room 210. A date will be announced after fall break. If you have any questions, you can ask Miss James.
This month is Hispanic Heritage Month. Today's video is about Cuba and Dominican Republic.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're hanging out in the Caribbean, visiting Cuba and the Dominican Republic. Cuba is the larger island, about 90 miles from Florida. That's closer than Nashville is to Benton. How crazy is that? The tip of Cuba is less than 60 miles to the nearest tip of the island of Hispaniola, which houses Haití and la República Dominicana. We won't be covering Haiti because they speak French there, but they do share an island with the Spanish-speaking Dominican Republic to the east. When I was researching Cuba, the most difficult part was choosing which beaches to feature. And because it's an island, there are a lot. Here is a picture of one of the beaches on the north coast of Santa Lucia. There's also Playa Larga, or Long Beach, Playa Varadero, and Cabo San Antonio. But Cuba has other landscapes, such as the Mogotes in the Vinales Valley to the west. Mogotes means heaps, which suggests that they aren't quite mountains, but they're bigger than hills. They also have actual mountains to the east called the Sierra Maestra Mountains. I had the same trouble choosing beaches with the Dominican Republic. The beaches of Rincon, Las Galeras, and La Playita, or Little Beach, are all really close to one another, with Rincon being the most famous. But the most famous beach is at Punta Cana, pictured here. Along with the beaches, the Dominican Republic also has a mountainous region, and with mountains come waterfalls. The capital of Cuba is La Habana, and another popular city is Santiago de Cuba. The capital of the Dominican is Santo Domingo, here with the Ozama River. We also have the city of Santiago de los Caballeros. Cuba is super famous for its colorful architecture that is influenced by Spain and the Moors or Arabs who influenced their architecture. These three pictures are from La Habana. The bottom left is the city skyline, and that's the inside of the Capitol building to the right. We also have a typical home in the outskirts of the city. This one is the home of a Cuban revolutionary named Abel Santa Maria. We can also see the city of Trinidad and its colorful architecture. Here is a close-up of Santo Domingo. We also have the first fortified palace ever built in the Caribbean, called Alcázar de Colón, named after Christopher Columbus. In Spain, his name is Cristobal Colón. This is the very first monastery ever built in the New World, but it has been destroyed by several earthquakes, so you can only visit the ruins. A monastery is a place where men study to become priests. And here is a home in the Dominican. It's called a bottle house, and it's literally made with recycled bottles. According to the charity 7 Elements, most typical houses are built with zinc roofs, palm leaves, and wood, all on a dirt floor. Those materials hold in a lot of heat. And the dirt floor is perfect for bacteria growth. So they began building houses with old plastic bottles held together by a wood frame and chicken wire, all on top of a cement pad. This not only cools down the residents, but it also saves the environment by using 12,000 bottles per house. By eliminating the dirt floor, the home is also more sanitary or healthy for the people who live there. The culture of the Caribbean is made up of the Taínos, the indigenous people that first inhabited the islands, and parts of Florida. Christopher Columbus, who landed in the region in 1492, and slaves brought over from Africa. Traditional Cuban clothing is both colorful and functional. For women, we see a lot of ruffles and dresses inspired by Spanish culture. For the men, we see the gallavera, a type of loose button-up shirt, and of course, a typical Cuban hat. The Dominican is even more inspired by Spain, as we can see in these festival outfits. Modern fashion in Cuba is tricky because they had been under multiple embargoes into the year 2014. That meant that virtually nothing could go in or out of the country. Now that the borders are open, 8 years later, popular culture is thriving. That includes fashion. Here we see clothing made by Jacqueline Fumero, a designer from Havana. Notice all the colors in that top picture? Do you think that dress was inspired by the landscape, traditional clothing, or both? At the bottom right, there is singer Daimé Arocena, who's wearing modern fashion with an African twist. And as you can see, men's fashion looks like it does all over the world. The Dominican Republic is making a name for itself by hosting Fashion Week on the island. Notice the colors of the model's dress. So those are the colors that usually represent Africa. Let's move on to music. I'm going to be honest. Cuba has so many musical styles and artists that I could do an entire presentation on just that. So we're just going to cover the basics. Benny Moré was a leading singer and composer during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Celia Cruz is probably the most famous singer from Cuba. She popularized salsa and brought attention to Cuba's African roots. Daimé Arocena is an Afro-jazz singer who is gaining popularity. Merengue is the Dominican Republic's national music. There are even merengue festivals all across the island. They are also known for their bachata and reggaeton. However, many Dominican artists seek fame in the United States. Here we do have Nati Natasha and Juan Luis Guerra, who are popular today. Many Cuban artists fled Cuba after the revolution in 1959, but here's a piece by Antonio Gatorno in 1938 which highlights everyday coffee drinkers. The environment is a huge influence in Dominican street art, as you can see here. Notice the recycled objects sticking out of the wall? José Martí was Cuba's most famous patriot, poet, and essay writer. He is considered one of Cuba's national heroes because he was a major part of independence from Spain. He was active into the late 1800s. Salomé Ureña was one of the Dominican Republic's most famous writers, and she fought for education rights for women and girls. Due to the political strife in both countries, most Cuban and Dominican writers were actually born in the United States. Cuba's most famous dish is called ropa vieja, which literally translates to old clothes. It is a stew made with a lot of spices to make the meat super tasty. But no meal is complete without rice and black beans, which is a staple in most Caribbean dishes. Mofongo is a really popular dish in the Dominican Republic, and it was inspired by African cuisine, as it's made from plantains, garlic, pork rinds, and sometimes shrimp or avocado. Thanks for visiting 2 different islands with me. Tomorrow, we'll head to another island, Puerto Rico.
Have a whack-tastic
Wednesday.
Wednesday.